Hello, we are going to be working on the analysis of character journal. This is 7th grade ELA during the second 9 weeks, and our focus is on the novel A Wrinkle in Time, and this is definitely a character analysis assignment. And if you look at the second 9 weeks big picture, you'll see that there are several dialectical journal points that students will complete the character analysis journals. And this is all leading up to a character analysis writing assignment that they'll have during week 8, and then the development that follows of the musical soundtrack project, which includes having students choose a song that represents the progression of the character during the beginning, the middle, and the end of the novel. And then they have to provide text evidence and write commentary in their own words to explain how that song fits the character. And so the development of this dialectical journal throughout just provides the baby steps for them along the way. Okay, so how can I access the character analysis assignments? Well, once you go to the link, the A+ Canvas structure, this is where you land. This is the home page, and you'll want to select the Files button, and don't click on the English curricula, only the Files button. And we're looking at English 7. And then today's focus is the second 9 weeks during this tutorial. This number 6, once you scroll down, you'll find the analysis of character, Meg, chapters 1 through 3 PDF. And when you click on it, this is what it looks like, and you'll have to scroll using your cursor to get to the bottom, because if you click here, that's going to progress you to the number 7 lessons, the next set of lessons. All right, so if you notice, you have 6, 6A, 6B, all the way through 6E. These are all connected to the character analysis journals. So they progress through each of the chapters, and then this video goes along with the same set of assignments. Those are all interconnected. So you have teacher notes for analysis of character. And this just kind of talks through, how most major characters have some kind of conflict, and that progresses the plot, and then how that reveals the type of person that that character is. And then whatever the experience that character may have as a result of the plot progression, what it reveals about their character, their personality, all of these patterns of behaviors and words and actions and thoughts shows how Meg grows from the beginning of the novel until the end. And then you have your materials and resources. Here are some ways that you can assess your students. And then here are just some suggestions to make the lesson flow a little more smoothly. Right, and then when students go look at their character analysis journal, this is the top that they're provided. Okay, this will be the top of the first page that they get. This is only on the first page, and then this will be at the bottom. So this just basically takes what you received in the teacher information and breaks it down into some more student-friendly terms, and even talks about, this helps you progress from the beginning of the novel until the end and look for patterns, the types of behaviors, responses, reactions to conflicts within the story, helps reveal the character traits of Meg. This basically puts that in student-friendly terms. And then it also gives them information about how the dialectical journal is set up, their character journal is set up. So in the left, it has a quote. That's their evidence. It's already going to be provided for the students during the second 9 weeks. And then the context. So that's basically who, what, when, where, what's happening at the time of the quote that's provided for them. In the right side, this is where they're going to have to think a little bit outside of the box. They're going to have to make an inference. They're going to use their opinion based on the evidence that's provided and what that tells about the character. And then at the bottom, they have to provide commentary to explain the connection between the evidence and then the characterization or the inferences that they choose. And we'll break this down a little more as we move ahead. All right, so this is the first thing that students see, and I would definitely say you're going to have to model a couple of these for the kids before you let them work with a partner or begin to work independently. So the text reference, the quote, is provided for the students. Okay, here is your context. This is your left-hand column. On the right hand is more opinionated, more inferencing. So the inference is about the character, and the commentary, which makes the connection between the inference and the text reference. Okay, so what exactly is context? I try to give my students that who, what, when, where kind of thinking when they're looking at context. So based on what's happening during this time right here, okay? So at the time of this quote, exactly what is happening. But these are facts only, no feelings, not what they think the character is feeling or thinking, no emotions included. This is just one sentence. Yes, it needs to be a complete sentence about who, what, when, where during the time of the quote. All right, here are your inferences about the character. So I always tell my students, what 3 words or what 3 phrases can be used to describe Meg based on what's happening here, okay? Only at this point in the novel, in this quote, during this context, what 3 inferences can I make about her? So I would always tell mine to use describing words or phrases or adjectives. And if your students are having a difficult time deciding what character traits are, like what are some specific character traits, there's a great student resource in the materials for ELA, the resources, and I would just print this out and put it at the beginning of the students', if you have a notebook or if they have a binder or whatever it may be, this is a great resource for them to have just to reference throughout the year because they're going to need this. But this breaks character traits down into physical, mental, moral, spiritual, social, and general personal qualities. And there is a great comprehensive list here. Obviously, that's not everything that they could use, but there's a great springboard here for them. All right, and then last is commentary. Commentary proves to be a little more difficult for the students because they have to put in their own words why this piece of evidence shows that the character is one of their inferences. So I think that providing this sentence stem for them, this quotation shows that Meg is blank, which would be one of your inferences, when blank, which is your context, because, and then they explain the connection between these two using their own words. So let's try it. Let's look at an example. So here's our quote. It's the weather on top of everything else, on top of me, on top of Meg Murray doing everything wrong. So now let's move to the context. So who, what, when, where. In sentence form, how can I tell what's happening here at this point in time of the quote without including any kind of emotions? So what I'm going to give you as a moment to read the little section where this comes from the book. It's right at the very beginning of the novel. So just pause it and read through it so that you'll kind of have an insight into what we're talking about. All right, so the context, who, what, when, where. So we know it's Meg, and what's happening, there's a storm, she's in the attic, okay? Facts only, no feelings, remember. Meg, the main character, is alone in her attic bedroom during a terrible storm. So I didn't include any kind of feelings that Meg was having. I didn't talk about her emotions. I just kept it plain and simple. Who, Meg, she's alone in her attic, and there's a terrible storm. Basic who, what, when, where information, okay? And then we have an inference about the character. So based on this quote and what's happening at this time, well, what can we say about Meg? Well, Meg's nervous, she's worried, she's negative. All 3 of these things are implied, and you can make the inference based on this quote. Okay, now let's move to the commentary. Remember, this is where we provide this sentence stem to them, and it's really helpful if you'll write this on a piece of chart paper or have a little poster made up and include this and leave it at the front of the room so that they can reference it throughout the entire 9 weeks. All right, so we're going to fill in the blank from here. The quotation shows that Meg is nervous. That came straight from the inferences. When she's alone in the attic during the storm, that comes straight from the context. Because, and this is where they fill in the blanks, how do you know that she's nervous based on this quote and what's happening? Because everything seems to be going wrong in her life, and she's afraid of what might happen next. So students, you're going to have to lead them there the first few times because they're not really going to understand exactly what you're expecting of them. But laying this out for them and modeling for the first couple of dialectical journals is going to be really beneficial for you and them. So I want to show you some student work. This is done on like index cards or sticky notes. And obviously it's not set up in the same way as this is, but includes all of the same information. So here's a new quote. I do face facts, Meg said. They're lots easier to face than people, I can tell you. All right, the context is, so what's happening, the who, what, when, where during this quote. The principal and Meg are talking in the office about her father. Okay, no emotions, no type of inferencing, no feelings from the character, just who, what, when, where. All right, they said that Meg was angry, aggressive, defensive. Okay, I would be in agreement. Meg is defensive. Remember, we're just filling in the blank. Meg is defensive. That comes straight from the inferences. When, here's the context, the principal implies that her dad is not returning because she finds it rude and she's already worried. So this is an inference that the student has to make based on what's happening here. They've used that same sentence stem. One thing I wanted to point out, if you teach your students to do the who, what, when, where method, you need to make sure that context information is written in a complete sentence. And they have done it down here at the very bottom. It's just really kind of hard to see. It's written in an ink pen. So you can see same quote, context. She changed it down here. It says, Meg was called to the principal's office for a meeting. Okay, Meg was irate, matter of fact, and disrespectful. Commentary. Meg is irate when the principal confronts her because he talks about her father and doesn't take her feelings into consideration. So once again, this word comes straight from the inferences. Here's your context right from here. When the principal confronts her, okay, here's the student's explanation. Because he talks about her father and doesn't take her feelings into consideration. So that's their own opinion, the connection that they made between the inferences and the quote. And I hope this clears things up for you. And now you're going to move into the development of some of your own character analysis, dialectical journals, and best of luck.